We learned recently that the governor of Michigan basically declared the Flint water crisis over because the studies confirmed that there's no longer lead in the water. Now, you have evidence that they're cooking the books. Are you able to talk about that before it's published or give us any insight? Because I think that's a bombshell
Yeah.
story.
And by the way, I could literally write a book on trying to get this published through corporate media, because I've had the outlets that have said no, and frankly, some of them are progressive. It's just incredible. I mean, obviously, if people don't think I have the story right, that's one thing. But there's been so many who just said, we don't have the bandwidth to read these 10 pages on Microsoft Word. And I'm like, yeah, but I have evidence that the science is cooked. You sure you can't read that? Or I've had outlets say, like, can you connect it to Trump in some way? I'm like, no, this happened under Obama. I can't. But yeah, so basically, I've been to Flint many times. Obviously credit to TYT for sending me when I was there. And I always was hearing this one name, Mark Edwards. He's the scientist that first identified the lead crisis in Flint. So he did a 2-year study. It was predominantly funded by the EPA. And he kept on finding and declaring an improving water situation in Flint. But when I was there on the ground, all I heard from residents was they're still sick, they're still getting sicker and whatnot. So I actually did something radical. I actually read his report. Most corporate media, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, just kind of regurgitate what the EPA or state agencies tell them. So I read his report and I realized that he was declaring Flint's water normal based on literally testing 17 homes to declare it normal. When I say 17, he tested 138 homes, but he only looked at 17. He only looked at 34 to meet the EPA's lead and copper rule. And without getting too in the weeds, the EPA's lead and copper rule basically is the regulation that makes sure you're looking at homes connected to lead service lines. So he only looked at 34 homes. He didn't use licensed plumbers to even verify that they were homes connected to lead service lines. And he also based his whole study on a separate University of Michigan Flint study. They did a mapping study of where the lead service lines were all over Flint. I literally have the person who did that mapping study on the record telling me it's very flawed. And he based his. So basically, my report, it's not just him. I look at the state testing, because Edwards was funded by the EPA. The state of Michigan, Department of Environmental Quality, they didn't use licensed plumbers either. And they decided what homes to test. And they happened to be in the zip codes that weren't the worst affected. So essentially, there's a lot of selective science and kind of cherry pick numbers to feed the EPA what they want, to basically feed Governor Snyder what he wants, to say, problem solved, let's move on. So they don't have to pay the real amount they need to pay to change all the lead service lines. Not just that, but they have to fix the interior plumbing in the homes. And the problem is, Mike, this isn't a sexy topic, right? Mm-hmm. It's not going to get a bazillion clicks on YouTube, but it could save lives. So I kind of cater more towards doing that. But, I won't name the outlets yet. There's been a lot of outlets that either wouldn't read it. I got Aaron Brockovich on the record. I got water experts on the record. I got plumbers on the record. I got residents on the record. It's not like my opinion. So that's the story. I've held back from self-publishing it only because I want, the people that I'm investigating in it, they could just say, this Bernie bro with his made up science. So I'm trying to get it in a publication that, gives it a little bit more credibility. So I'm working on it. And I also currently am talking to one politician who I might be able to get on the record in the story.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.